Thursday. Wake up, Patriots. Good morning. Good to see you. Good to be back with you. Usually I'm here on Wednesdays for Wonderland Wednesday, but we're going to switch it up today and just make it a Thursday. And I'm joined today with my good friend, Chris Cordani, who is an 80s radio legend, but also a great
Sort
Patriot
of.
like everybody else in our chat.
Oh yeah, I like to consider myself a good '80s patriot. Best
I
music,
love
best
that.
clothes, best president. How about that?
Absolutely. We have a lot of people that can relate to that. We have our demographic is pretty close in age to me and you. And I don't know exactly how old you are, but I'm figuring based on your music references, as we're getting to know each other, that we're probably about the same age.
I've been stuck at 40 for a little while, so that's fine.
I
There
like
we go.
that. I like that. I like 37 personally. I mean, I think 37 is like a good age. It's just before 40 to be 37 again.
It's
Hmm.
Casey Stengel's Mets uniform number 37. I believe he wore that on the Yankees too. But again, that's a different story.
Wow, you brought up the Mets. The Mets, I come from a Mets family. My son is a huge Mets fan.
So we're all used to disappointment. That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, rooting for the underdog. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing, are they not? Are they not rooting for the underdog? We're going to have the big boy press conference today at
I,
5:30. Can you believe it?
I don't think they're rooting for underdog at all. I think they're rooting for Simon Bar Sinister at this point.
Ooh,
That would be him.
okay.
Yes, Simon Bar, because underdog's the good guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I guess in certain scenarios, the underdog is the good guy, especially if you're talking about the Mets. They were the miracle Mets after all. But this is going to need more than a miracle to save the American people from the communism and socialism that's crept in under this administration. And the Democrats are finally maybe seeing the light. I mean, maybe some of them are. Peter Welch, who's this Democrat, has now stepped forward first person to actually come forward, first congressman to come forward and say, hey, something's wrong. He cannot rerun. And the first person to be, there you go, to be public with it. But isn't that crazy that that's the first person, the first representative to come out and say something's wrong here? I mean, it's unbelievable that people are just waking up. I guess that's why this show is called Wake Up Patriots. But it's hard to believe for those of us that have been awake that other people aren't just seeing what seems to be so obvious in this older man who is essentially being elder trafficked by his family in the White House.
Well, the funny thing is, even some Democrats are turning around to try to force Biden's way or force a path for Biden to have to step down. Even Anna Paulina Luna out of Florida
Hmm.
is on board with releasing those investigation tapes where Biden was questionably conscious, if you will.
I mean, questionably conscious. I mean, anybody who watched the debate, it's hard to believe that they didn't walk away realizing the obvious. I mean, this was the best he could do. And then he was saying it wasn't his best night. And yesterday we talked about George Stephanopoulos getting caught on hot mic after that ABC interview by TMZ saying he shouldn't run. And now we are at least seeing some people slowly come forward and say something's wrong here. But it's hard to believe that they haven't woken up yet. But it's also hard to believe when they show us that they're globalists and they hold something like the Biden solo press conference during the NATO summit. And just to reference back to that interview on ABC, I don't know if you caught this, but Biden actually said, who's going to hold NATO together like me? Not who's going to hold the United States together? Who else is going to hold NATO together other than me? And they're showing us just point blank, we're globalists. And then you see that Huma Abedin is now married to, I guess, George Soros Jr. That was some breaking news yesterday.
Not
It just seems like
surprising.
they're all tied. Not surprising, but just so dirty. Ugh.
Exactly, exactly. The funny thing is, Joe Biden is actually older than NATO, isn't he?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
probably why he thinks he's the glue that holds the world together. In fact, he's the
yeah.
guy. Him and his deep state are tearing the world apart, and NATO is even part of that. Look, under Trump, they were a little scared of him in a lot of ways, but they knew that Trump was right when he said, "You all need to pay your fair share." We talk about paying your fair share. We let so many other countries slide when it comes to having the American taxpayers foot the bill for foreign policy. Donald Trump walked in and said, "You guys have to pay your fair share." And the richer ones, the richer nations says, "All right, we'll do that." That's how to hold NATO together, making sure everybody has a stake in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was all about that. He talked a lot about that in the Tuesday night rally. And he also was talking a lot about the border, which of course, we talked about yesterday too, like following up on that and following in the chat because the chat has been on fire for me to go down the rabbit hole on what has happened to this 150,000 children that are basically unaccounted for, that the Biden administration, these unaccompanied minors that have been let go. And you know who's been all over this from the beginning, Chris? Is Andy Biggs. And I want to give a shout out right now to Big Sexy, who is a former co-host of mine from a former network, a land in a long, long time ago in a place far, far away. But Big Sexy was a big fan of Andy Biggs, pun intended, and kept saying to me, this representative from Arizona, he's really got a handle on what's happening. He's really fighting. He's fighting for these missing children. And he would have him on the show a lot, to the point that prompted, Ed and I to sort of joke about like his obsession with Andy Biggs. And I went down the rabbit hole on Andy Biggs. That's what ended up happening with these missing children. And I'm now obsessed with Andy Biggs. So I'm hoping, Chris, that we can reach out to him and maybe get him on the show here in the near future, because he's been shouting from the rooftops since 2021 about what's going on and these children being unaccounted for, all of this. And nobody was listening. Again, it's like it just falls on deaf ears. It took them 5 months to answer a letter that he prompted Congress with. He's a congressman, for them to actually address the fact that they didn't know where 20,000 children are, which they've now admitted to. So he tweeted out this tweet, and I know you had it up there, and I got sidetracked because I'm so excited about this, because I think Andy Biggs is a real freedom fighter. But 1,267 days, 1,267 days, this is yesterday, and the southern border is still wide open. And he's brought up again and again about, show us who you are, showing us with NATO, showing us with having this press conference right now today during the NATO summit. And they've been showing us all along that they're globalists. They've been showing us all along that they want open borders. And he has this amazing documentary that I didn't even know he had. I want everybody to check it out. I'm going to put the link in the chat. I watched it last night. It is called Alien Invasion, and it is just epic in every way. It really illustrates what's happening. And when you look at what's gone on, this 146,000 kids, if you break down the numbers, Chris, I'm going to give you the statistic for a second. It's going to blow your mind. That would be the biggest school district in the entire United States. Okay. And it's going to cost taxpayers a sum of $4.6 billion.
That's I think you need to go like this after saying that. $4.6 billion.
I see you have the trailer up there. I think I sent you, I don't know if this is this on your YouTube? Okay, perfect. So this is the one that I cut.
I put it on mine. It's the one you cut. I make it a little easier to put these things up. It's a cunning plan, if you will. However,
I love that.
I just want to insert one little thing in here. I'm not sure why
please.
anybody's surprised that Joe Biden has kept the borders as open as he had. This was an Obama policy for a long time. Obama also, and if you remember, put a poison pill into the next administration, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, when he increased the DACA numbers and increased the quota for number of immigrants allowed into this country via the southern border. Now, having said that, you're also talking about Biden, who's part of the administration which helped facilitate the Honduran drug trafficking situation through Alliance for Prosperity back in 2014. That also may have, through the deep state and other very evil factions, have facilitated or undergroundly facilitated a child sex trafficking trade from out there as well. This is why it's no surprise that Joe Biden has these missing children numbers under his belt and has these open borders.
It's unbelievable. And this movie, what I really liked about it is it's like we have the records. We actually have video of these people talking, all of these people, Joe Biden and everybody else, for years and years and years. Everything is recorded. You can easily go back and reference what they've been saying all along. And I felt like when I watched this, it really was a good reminder that they had been telling us this for, you said it, even before the Biden administration, the Democrats in general, like, this is what we want to do. We want to flood the country with illegals. When are we going to listen? And I just want to pivot real quick. I want to play the trailer, but real quick, I want to remind everybody tonight, big boy press conference,
Oh,
5:30, 5:30, big boy press conference. But at
Right.
6 o'clock, we're going to be in the Rumble chat on EdMax. I actually talking about this solo press conference, which probably won't last more than a half an hour, I believe. So we're going to definitely be in that Rumble chat. I will be there. And all of this conversation that we're having this morning, Chris, what I love about this show is this has all been prompted by the Patriots in the chat. And I would have never found this documentary trailer and never watched this documentary last night had it not been for our Rumble chat. So big shout out to them. Big shout out to Trixie in the mix and the whole family there that just continues to give us amazing topics. So go ahead and play this. I want everybody to watch this.
He claimed the immigration and border security policies of President Donald Trump were racist and bigoted.
We're going to have strong, incredible borders, and people are going to come into our country, but they're going to come into our country legally.
Joe Biden made it clear that if he won the presidency, unfettered mass illegal migration into the United States.
What I would do as president, I would in fact make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum.
Today, virtually everything at the border is controlled by the cartels.
America's opioid crisis shows no signs of abating.
95% of the fentanyl comes from our wide open southwest border.
More than 107,000 Americans died of drug overdoses in 2021.
U.S. Border Patrol stretched thin by record migrant crossings.
No, there will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
Disturbing new images of the crisis at our southern border.
It's become a record-breaking year of border crossings. Most of those encounters
it is honestly one of the best documentaries that I've watched. And who knew that Andy Biggs was also not only an amazing congressman who's making change that's willing to actually take heat, but he's also makes documentaries. He's a movie maker. Are you muted, Chris? I think you're muted.
Yeah, so that's my end.
There you
I hit those buttons very awfully sometimes. I wanted to throw in a little bit of that history or a little reference back to the history I brought up here. 2014.
Yeah.
This is a picture of Joe Biden, then vice president, and Jose Oscar Hernandez, the jailed drug trafficking and likely child trafficking. And there is evidence there's evidence to that. Former president of Honduras, as part of the working with the Alliance for Prosperity issue or diplomacy effort, if you will, under the first Biden administration. This is the second one. And the idea is they wanted open borders for I'm saying this. I'm not saying that we're saying this. I believe the open borders is to help facilitate the trafficking, whether it be drug or children. And it's because you're seeing these people who are in power now, even back then, cavorting with such people who such people who have perpetrated this kind of thing. There we go.
You're right.
And
the perpetrators, you got it. No, you keep saying traffickers, and it goes back to exactly what I said at the beginning of the show. Like, this is historically, like, Democrats are traffickers. I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
In one way or the other, because honestly, at this point, if it's their trafficking policy that's not in the interest of the American people, they're trafficking Joe Biden in the White House. They're trafficking voters. I mean, think about this. Think about these children. Go back to these children for a second that are lost in this country. Okay. What were they being used for? Why were they brought here unaccompanied and not supervised by this administration? It's mind-boggling. If it was 100 children, you'd be blown away. To think that there are 20,000 children that they simply lost track of, you have to scratch your head and say to yourself, there's a larger issue here. This is a part of the culture. This is a part of who they are. It's in their DNA. I mean, it might sound very harsh, but I don't know any other way to explain it, Chris.
And the truth hurts. That's all I can tell you. The truth hurts.
Right.
They cavort with traffickers, and money launderers, and people who are involved with cartels, and this is what happens. But people let them get away with it. Why? Because the first one, Obama, was a pretty package. The second one, this Manchurian Candidate, is a nice little grandpa-y package. And I've actually heard people say, "Oh, Biden is so harmless here. It reminds me of my grandfather. He's so wonderful." I never hear anything about their policy. I hear Obama had had such a gentle hand, and he was so calming. What a nice looking man. And for Biden, it was, oh well, he's so grandpa-y and everything. I never hear, when it comes to analysis of their presidencies, uh, positives, even from people who support them, about their policies. This is probably one of the reasons.
And they're leading with grandpa, I think, is a pretty telling reason as well. And, maybe I get so infuriated by this because my mother was essentially trafficked by a lawfare system, a system that doesn't do justice to everyday Americans and steals their civil rights. And here we have this man who's so obviously a Manchurian candidate. And you said it, Donald Trump said it, I'm saying it, like, it's obvious, it's transparent, it's who they are telling us who they are. You go back to everything that we've talked about since the top of the show, time and time again. And, later on in the show, we're going to have a really exciting guest. Ray Simon is going to join us. So our Rumble chat's going to blow up over this one. Haven't seen him in a while. But, I want to give a big shout out to Mike Mack. He's a big friend of the show. He was on the ground with us in Ohio. Ed and I were there twice. We went right after the derailment, February 22nd, 23rd, and then also went back 2003 in March. And Mike was there on the ground. Ray Simon lives nearby, who's also an amazing artist who's just completed an amazing painting of Donald Trump, which we'll show later in the show. But what has happened and transpired with that is unbelievable because, again, they were telling us from the beginning we weren't listening or people didn't want to be awake to it. But we saw people on the ground again and again saying, we are affected as a family. My child has a rash. Something is wrong. Ed and I experienced it. We got out of the car there and I said, my eyes are burning. And he said, me too. And I said, I wonder if this is psychosomatic. Well, after 2 days, I was pretty sure that it wasn't. And when I got back from the first trip, I went on a serious heavy metal detox because that was where it was recommended because they didn't know what we had been exposed to. Well, now we know what we've been exposed to. I took this picture. This picture is this one. This one's from March. This is from my second trip there. These barrels were sitting out in yards all over East Palestine. Can you imagine that there are people walking around your yard as you send your kids to school? They're in hazmat suits, mind you, digging up dirt and putting them in barrels. The EPA's there. And you're expected to just act like there's not a problem, send your kids to school and ignore everything that's going on. It sounds unbelievable, especially in America. But yet, that is exactly what happened. And now finally, too late, right? Give them truth. Well, they never got that and they're still not getting it. Maybe little shreds of it. But the people that have been affected by this, I mean, it's unbelievable that here we are in July and now we get July 2024. We get a year and a half later, we get the NTSB report that this derailment was completely preventable. And the vent and burn, what allowed some of this vinyl chloride and other chemicals to escape into the atmosphere and affect maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, that didn't need to be done. They made a mistake. They shouldn't have done that. Oh, well. And meanwhile, now you've got a situation where all of these people have been exposed. The government did nothing. The Biden administration was not on the ground there until I think maybe 8 months later. It might have even been a year before they actually made it a visit. And I'm saying
Biden went a year
I'm
later.
Not saying him.
Right.
Yeah,
Biden
a year later.
Yep. Put a jack in that. The big guys, they didn't really take much time to go there. No, it took them a while.
He did a photo op,
Right.
and it was after we were on the ground there with Donald Trump, who wasn't even president at the time.
That's correct.
The entire thing is mind-boggling.
Look, the administration doesn't care what happens. I'll say they don't care what happens inside America, but they don't care what happens if it's their fault or it's something that they should be handling. They're so busy pushing social agendas and trying to get internet, social media cred from the kids who listen to their Dave Clark 5 or whatever, Donnie and Marie or whatever they're listening to these days, the kids are listening to. And
Wow.
and just typing everything so they feel a lot better. These people, the Democrats, govern by social media. They govern by Twitter. They operate to get credit from these keyboard warriors, and they operate in fear of being called a racist or something else by these keyboard warriors. And that's why we're getting what we're getting. Now, screw America. The illegals have to come in because we don't have any illegal immigrants anymore. They were all moved out. See, when Joe Biden says we don't have illegal immigrants, that's because he replaced them all with asylum seekers.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's just so much about everything, whether it's the border or East Palestine or any of these things that we go down the rabbit hole on. You're just unraveling this same theme again and again as it comes down to this globalist agenda, this disregard for people, for the almighty dollar. And that's definitely what happened in East Palestine. And I'm so excited that we're going to soon have Ray Simon joining us and talking to us about this because he lives there. He saw what happened. We were on the ground there. We absolutely can tell you from experience that we felt it. It wasn't like something that people told me. I actually experienced it firsthand. And people were bringing us their children into the diner and saying, look at my child's arm. There's a rash that we can't explain. And you know who was there with us, Chris, was JD Vance. And I think it's a really interesting time to revisit.
It's in Ohio. Yeah, I mean, he should
but how
be there.
that crisis, he should be there. But I'm saying, like not just there, in a political sense. There are a lot of politicians, and I'm not talking about Donald Trump because he's on the ground, but a lot of politicians, even Republican politicians, that get a lot of work done, but they don't do their work on the ground with real Americans, shaking their hands, spending time with them. That's the way politics was back in the day. But you said it too, the Democrats are ruled by social media, and in large part, we've become a social media society. So a lot of that, it ends up happening that you live in a small town in Ohio like that. You want your, representative to be somebody that's relatable, and in their senator, they're getting someone who's relatable. I have to say too, that I was actually pretty impressed when I went and looked at what's going on in East Palestine, that some of their Democrats there are now standing up too and saying, yeah, you know what? Like, these are the people I represent. We're now talking about millions of people affected, and we have a serious problem that we have to address because people are still getting sick and they're still dealing with this, almost 2 years later. It's really mind-boggling.
That's right. So you had to put the jacket on so it looks a lot better.
Oh, there you go. Well, you're dressing up for our guest. I like that. I like that a lot. I was wondering, do you have that picture? I want to show Ray's picture of his painting if we have it. Do you have that handy?
I will get that. I will get that up in a moment. As I work on that, there's because Ray's going to be in. He has a lot of other new things brewing as well, and he's going to be able to talk about that. I had a nice little conversation with him yesterday. You're going to really enjoy what he has to offer us. I will one day. I host another show called the Outhouse Lounge. I'd love you to see that sometime. Tony Schaefer and I just did a special on The Prisoner. I'm working on fictional bands after this. But most of the shows I generally wear a leisure suit, a dark green leisure suit. So if you'd like, maybe with you or with Tony sometime in the future, I will wear that. And this way we can bring us back to the 70s. Yes, we could bring us a little back to the 70s. I look pretty darn good in it.
That sounds too Jimmy Carter for me. I mean, you're going back to a decade. I mean, where are we talking about the 70s? Because are we talking about, I mean, what reference in the 70s is that
let's
period?
Put a leisure suit. Let's put it this way. It's not Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter had no style. The man who had style in the 1970s was one great landlord. His name was Stanley Roper, one of the best dressers in television history.
Oh, wow. Roper. The chat's going to be all over that
Three's
reference.
Company, Stanley Roper. I'll pull up a picture of him, but we do want to get the picture of, I'm trying to pull this picture of this picture we have up, and it's going to give me a couple moments. Give me a little bit of a hassle.
Yeah, you got some time. I'm looking at the chat. I'm seeing what everybody's saying this morning. We got a bunch of people in there. We have over 600 people watching so far.
And there we go.
Got it.
See, a little bit of yapping.
I got to tell you something. He is definitely, I mean, there are a lot of people that have said that he's one of the most talented artists in America. They've compared him to, Norman Rockwell. He's just incredible. I mean, when you look at the definition, you look at this picture, you think to yourself, it's got to be a photograph. Like, how can somebody paint with this amount of detail? And what I love about Ray, and I'm so excited to have him on with you and for you to meet him, is he goes into such detail, historically, what inspires him to do these paintings. The sun rising on America, I'm sure, is part of that because we had talked about this, years ago when he first started this painting. And these paintings take him a long time. A lot of work goes into this, and he's just incredible. And what he's incredible for too is just being a neighbor. He's somebody who grew up in Ohio, who grew up near the site of this horrible disaster. And when I went there, I was there with his family members, and they were pitching in and finding ways to help their neighbors and finding ways to contribute to the community, much like JD Vance, who may or may not be the VP pick. He was there not only, I think, out of obligation as a politician, but I really felt very genuinely that he was there because he wanted to be there with his neighbors addressing something that was going to affect him and his family. That's how I felt about it. I thought it was very, very real.
And what's going on, and yes, he actually he'll point out a couple of things in the painting you'll be seeing where it's not just about Donald Trump. It's about you'll see the combination of the two bridges, the George Washington Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge, bringing both sides of America together, or America together. The idea is, again, the idea is there's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot more to these paintings that Ray puts forth, aside from just really great renderances of or really great images of Donald Trump and the world around him. So
Yeah.
what we're going to definitely hear from him and find out what he has to say, more about what he has to say and what he's working on. There are a lot of really good things he's doing. So that's
That's
another.
amazing. I'm
I'll show that
excited.
photo. I'll show that again. See the bottom, the combination of the Golden Gate and the George Washington Bridge.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and that's there he is in the Oval Office. You got the images behind him
Cool.
of great American statesmen. This is the man thinks of everything.
He does, and I can't wait because the way he's going to describe it too, like every time I hear him talk about the story behind where he got all of the ideas that are in these paintings from, it's always really beautiful and colorful, just like the paintings. But more than that, I'm actually interested to hear what he's feeling like as a neighbor, especially now knowing that the NTSB has come forward and said, "Hey, we should have never done this. They should have never burned anything." And there you have it. I guess you're lighting the mood here with a
That's
little
Mr. Roper.
a little
That's Mr.
roperism.
Roper. Yes, he was the landlord on Three's Company. He used to wear leisure suits too. Not Mr. Furley. I didn't like the way he dressed as much. He was a little too
Yeah, I
far.
guess I get the two of them confused, I get them confused. In my mind, it's a little fuzzy that period of time there, that mid 70s. A lot of that was on rerun. Maybe you are a little bit older than me. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out.
Well,
But I
I
want
was
to mention too, art with Ray Simon's a good investment, but we all need to be thinking about the future right now, and the economy is super uncertain. I just want to talk about our sponsor real quick. Colonial Metals Group can help you right now. They are making an offer. You can get up to $10,000 in free silver. You just call the 800 number. It's super easy. 800-805-4034. Find out what they can do for you. This is not a time where you're going to want to put your money into the stock market. When we watch what's going on with the big boy press conference later today and all of the tricks that the Democrats are pulling to potentially manipulate yet another election, there's got to be a better way. And I think that's where Colonial Metals Group is going to come in for you. There's a way that patriots can go ahead and protect their future for their children and still have a legacy. Isn't that what America was all about? Giving a legacy to your children, being able to do something that's better than the generation before. I think it's important right now to make better decisions. I know I'm going to with my family's future, because what used to work may not be working anymore. And once they got rid of the gold standard, everything changed. And right now, gold is still a really great investment along with other heavy metals like silver. And you can get $10,000 in free silver. Call 1-800-805-4034 and let Colonial Metals Group let you know what they can do for you. Chris.
yes, it's always good to give him a call. And these days, there's a strong relationship between a troubled economy and precious metals. Precious metals have historically tended to go upward in a rough economy. There are experts who see gold going, and I'm not telling you what to do. I'm going to put a disclaimer here. I'm not an investment guy. But there are experts in the investment world that are saying gold's going to skyrocket. You're looking over 3,000. Some have put
Mhm.
gold in 5 digits. But again, you want to talk to these guys. You want to talk to Colonial Metals Group, and always make your own decisions, and do your own research before making the final. Uh, let's say pulling the final trigger, if you will.
Yeah, you know what I love about it too is like so often we talked about the social media driven society. So often it's just, you get pushed off to a website, go fill out this form, go do this. Oh,
Right.
we don't take phone calls. We do everything on our website. I like the fact that you can call them, somebody gets on the phone with you,
A
you can
human.
talk to them about your situation, find what's right for you. And that is a rarity these days. The land of customer service is all but dead, Chris.
Well, again, you can talk to a human. That's a big deal these days.
It is a
That's
big
actually a
deal.
newer trend. You're actually uh, these days there are businesses turning away from the call centers. There are a lot still working with them, but there are more people trying to get humans that are within the company that actually might be able to steer you in a proper direction these days, because that's the market anymore. That's customer service. Although I believe automation will be coming back as the economy does flounder, only because of cost cutting. And that's another problem.
Yeah, well, and there are things that are obviously modern conveniences that
Mm.
we don't want to diminish, but it's always like, where's that line? Like, where are you going too far? And, it comes back. It's the same as the Democrats, this administration's candidate that they have that they're putting up. I mean, look at it. It's like, where's the line? Is there a line anymore? Or can it just be so ridiculous? Can it be such a ridiculous clown show that the American people finally say, we no longer have control? After all, this was all about we the people. Think about it. The American Revolution, what made this country great. And here we are. And Donald Trump said it best when he said, this country may not have a future for my kids and my grandchildren. We all feel that way. The chat feels that way. Chris, you feel that
Right.
way. I feel that way. We don't know. We're very uncertain right now.
Agreed here, and uncertainties ruled the day probably since 2007, when the credit crunch happened. A lot of people think 2008 was the crash, but the credit crunch was in the making for, I guess, over around 13 years, if you will, because it was predicted back in the mid 90s when the ninja loans were allowed. We can, again, that's a rabbit hole we can get down, but uncertainties ruled the day with the markets since 2007 and onward. And you need stable assets, and you need somebody who can help advise you and navigate you through them. And that's
You
important
really
because,
do.
right. Well, people are reasonably smart, but you think anybody who works very hard in their own field can keep track on these things 24/7? No.
No, I just had a conversation yesterday with my child about this, about how as I get older, you'll appreciate this, Chris. I don't have to do things that I'm not good at anymore. But back in the day, when you're struggling and trying to get by and trying new things in your career, you do a lot of things that you're maybe not so good at. You don't do them as well as you would like to do them. And it's a real luxury to get older and be in a position where you no longer have to do things that you're not good at. But then you look at the Democrats and keep bringing it back to them. And they so obviously have all of these people that aren't serving them, that aren't doing a good job, yet they continue to do it. And the only thing it can come back to is, they want utter and complete control over America. And at this point, it looks like they may have it. If Donald Trump doesn't come in and we're not able to outvote the fraud, as he said so blatantly, we may be in a situation too big to be rigged. Too big to be rigged. That voter turnout is going to be essential.
Well, it is, and keep in mind, a lot of the COVID rules are not going to be intact in many states. Some states still have them, but those are the blue ones anyway, and they're gonna vote their way. The idea is a lot of the swing states are gonna there are some different rules in a few of them. Actually, they reverted back to the pre-COVID rules, which, by the way, they were thrown right at us, and they could be considered technically unconstitutional. You can't bring them back. You can't bring the election back or anything like that. But the game was played, and they just called COVID on it. They're probably hoping that Disease X would come out this year. They could find a way to say, well, I don't know, we should keep those COVID
Yeah.
rules going, let people vote from home, and we'll just collect the ballots from them. No more of this, and none of this. And one thing I don't want to see is any more of these automatic mail-in ballots. Those
Yeah.
those open us up to real corruption and real, again, I'll call it legal cheating, if you will. Legal cheating,
I'm
vote
trying to
harvesting.
look and
It's the
Something.
ground
I
game.
saw something really interesting the other day. Yep, this is exactly what it was. As you're saying this, I'm going back to the ridiculousness of the mask thing. I don't know if you saw this, Chris. I'm sure our chat will go crazy over it. But Violet Affleck, who's like Ben and Jennifer Affleck's daughter, it
Yeah.
was basically petitioning like some city council to put back the mask mandates. And it's just the most ridiculous thing that you've ever seen. And you think to yourself, is this what's happening to the next generation, that they've now been so conditioned by this that they're clinically insane?
That's probably true. Think about this though. It's a free country. You want to wear a mask? Go ahead and do it. You can do whatever you want in this country. We just shouldn't be legislating. We shouldn't be
No, I mean,
telling people.
petitioning for mandates. I mean, come on, like for what? And again, what is that next pandemic? We talked about it possibly being bird flu. It looks like that's not taking off the way it would need to, pun intended.
Before COVID, when I commuted down to the city a couple times a week, I would be in the subway, and on occasion we'd have somebody, maybe one or two people, generally elderly people, come in and they wear a mask in the subway. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not a mask person, but I can understand where they're coming from. It smells in here. And you don't know what kind of germs are in a subway because people get up and down. You don't know what they have, if they're really sick or anything else like that. So if you're elderly or you're compromised physically, by all means, do what you have to do to protect yourself, but don't force the rest of us to do it just because you don't want to feel like an outcast doing so. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's just the way things
absolutely.
are. I want to wear my leisure suits again. That's what I want to do. And you know what? I'm
Yeah.
going to, and I'm going to do that in public. You want to laugh at me? Fine. Because you know what? I have style and I'm going to bring them back.
There you go. I like it. I like your optimism today. I want to, before we bring in our guest, who I know is, I think, waiting backstage for us, I want to play, we're talking about the fact that now all of a sudden they've pulled it off the veil and they've said, there is an issue that, things did go wrong in East Palestine. And I think this news report that I watch is just so good because here's the local news actually admitting what's happening there. And where is the national news? Where are the national affiliates? Play this real quick for everyone.
Necessary to prevent a catastrophic explosion. But more than a year later, the Transportation Safety Board found Norfolk Southern and its contractors compromised the integrity of the decision to vent vinyl chloride by creating unwarranted urgency in not communicating expert opinions, including that the chemicals manufacturer did not believe a catastrophic explosion was about to take place.
I mean, they certainly had information that they withheld.
While the derailment is now in the past, recent testing by the U.S. EPA found vinyl chloride had lingered at the East Palestine site, with 4 follow-up samples in 3 areas reading above threshold levels. One of those as recent as May 2024.
If it's still turning up, that tells me that there's a reservoir or a source of vinyl chloride that remains in the community.
We asked University of Pittsburgh toxicologist Dr. Jim Fabisak for his take on what happens next.
So it certainly bears watching over time to see if and how a plume of vinyl chloride is moving through the community, where it goes, and if it gets too close to residences.
And should residents believe assurances that East Palestine is safe, even as residents continue to report medical symptoms?
I think at the moment, the physical damage appears minimal. We do still continue to hear people talk about these symptoms, which needs to be rigorously followed up and addressed.
Dr. Fabisak also recommends medical monitoring of as many people as possible for numerous symptoms.
You would look for different things based on what you knew the chemicals of concern to be. Let's say, for example, in vinyl chloride, we would be mostly focused on liver dysfunction.
Representative DeLuzio says Congress needs to act to protect residents' safety along railroad tracks.
It's clear to me that Congress has to step in and pass some reasonable common sense legislation to better protect communities like ours.
There you have it. And he's a Democrat. But is it too little too late? It's unbelievable to me that, here's this local news report. I haven't seen anything. I had to dig to really find out what's going on there. And although there were headlines and stories all this week about this NTSB report, unless you were actually following it, I didn't see anything. You talked about social media based world. I didn't get any kind of update on it. And I've traveled to this place twice and met with people on the ground. If my phone knows that I've been there, you think it would be feeding me some updates, no?
It's not a sexy story, and I hate to put it that way. The clickbaiters know how to clickbait, and East Palestine is not a clickbait story anymore. It was for a few weeks a long time ago, and there was the question as to whether the administration was even going to show up or not and handle things, who was going to get the blame. But nobody in the political world seems to care, and not enough people in the media world seems to care uh, until this kind of thing happens again, and it starts all
Right.
over. Right. But
I bet
yeah,
I bet you Ray Simon cares, Chris.
I hope he does. I think we all care.
Do we have him? Where is he? Is he in the dark?
I
Where
think
is
he is.
he? What
He's
are you
glowing.
doing,
He's a
Ray?
harbinger of doom with the
What is
shadow.
happening?
I'm down in the studio. I could turn the light on for you. While you're talking, Karyn, you can't see it, but here's the paperwork from United States District Court of Northern District of Ohio. And if you sign this paper, my daughter's a prosecutor. If you sign this paper, they send you $380 for the derailment. Because I live 14 miles away, the crow flies.
And do you give up some liability or something as you
All
sign
your
that
liability.
paper? Yeah, why would you do that? Insane. People are desperate for the $360 in this Biden economy, though. No?
$360 can get us maybe at least 2 or 3 fast food meals and 6 gallons of gas. So come on.
Right, exactly. And you know what? There are people, just so both there's people suffering there, and that's what they're really still from that outrageous. Let me put this. I could put the lights on. Let me hold on.
No, I have so many questions, Ray. I'm trying to stay serious here about this rabbit hole because this is really important, but I need a minute to process this. This is where you produce this stunningly beautiful art. And I don't want to jump in and criticize your decor skills, but I have to say that in my imagination, the room in where you produce these beautiful paintings didn't look exactly like the room that you're sitting in there. I don't know. I'm a little confused. Is this where you paint?
It's artist organization. That's what it is.
It really is. It's so good. I love Ray so much. And this is he makes him even more interesting. Every time, it's like his paintings. His paintings have all these levels to them, right? They're very intricate. You've got a story behind a story behind a story with a little history tied in. And every time you think you know everything that's been in the painting, something new jumps out at you and you go, wow. And that is Ray Simon embodied today, because Ray Simon looks like he's in a basement. I'm going to say it, with a drop ceiling. And he's producing art that looks like this. I need a backstory. I need to know what's happening.
I'm hiding Biden. No, piece of
in the Biden basement. There you go.
If you go to raysimon.art, that painting, Karyn, if you look at that painting at raysimon.art, the Golden Gate Bridge subtly blends into the Washington Bridge, and in the middle where it meets, you see the flag. Okay, and you see the arches from St. Louis. Okay, and I think the title of the painting is "Sacred Fire of Liberty." And the reason why I named it the Sacred Fire of Liberty, only because of when in 1787 George Washington said the preservation and the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered deeply, perhaps as finally, staked on this great experiment and trusted into the hands of the American people. So this country's a threat. And I get so angry because people call up, and you know what, going back to your COVID, Kristen, you're talking about COVID. Here, let me ask both of you a question. 1912, the Titanic sank, right? Star Liner held their hearings in London, correct? Yes. And at the end of the day, guess who ended up being responsible, being held accountable for the sinking of that ship? The captain. The captain was responsible for the sinking of even though he was dead. So I'm tired of hearing, oh, well, it was Charles Lindbergh's baby that was lost. That's why Joe Biden's inflation. And it was Amelia Earhart's airplane. We can't find it. You know what? You remember the movie, Karyn? You know I get on a roll. You know the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield? You remember that
I was
movie?
in a
great movie.
commercial
That's
with
a classic.
Rodney
A
Dangerfield
classic.
one time. He's amazing.
Do you remember when he said, "Screw you,
rest his
Mellon"?
soul.
Remember this? Screw you, Mellon, and tell Kurt Vonnegut I'm canceling his check. That's what you got to tell Joe Biden. He's got to take ownership of what he's doing. He's never taken ownership, and the media's been lying to us since the Dead Sea was sick. That's how long the media has been lying to us, and it's so frustrating. Only because you look at Democrats and you say, "Look, if my house burnt down, God forbid, and I stayed, Karyn, at your house, and I stole from you, Karyn Turk, would you?" And I love you dearly because you're just you love America, and that's one thing that we haven't bought. But if I stole from you, would you ever trust me again? Let me answer that for you, big fat no.
Yeah, no, definitely
So
not.
as an artist, how do you trust the media and the Democratic Party? Bro, it's like, bro, you've been lying to us since the Dead Sea was sick. So now we're supposed to say, oh, yeah. And I love this saying. You know, I've been working with Tony Orlando, and I called him last night because I really like to get him on your show. Tony just retired. Remember Tony Orlando and Dawn?
Of course, yes. Are you kidding? He's going to come on the show?
See,
He is excited. Do you know that I had the people from New Zoo Review on the show one time? And that was one of the most exciting shows I've ever done. Like you're reading me so well. Like I would love to have Tony Orlando on.
Oh my God, you know what? Joe and I, he's our agent now. In fact, we're working on a project now. We're going to be going to Israel because, again, not to one life's too many to lose, and I guess right is right, is wrong, and you need to really understand history. And what a Palestinian life, an Israeli citizen's life, one's too many to lose. But when they say war is hell, Chris, war is hell. And at the end of the day, we're doing a painting where you can. It's called Heroes of Israel, where you put an oval in it, and they want to present it to all those who served, all those who lost their lives, and those who are being held captive. Because in Tel Aviv, they have a square called the Yellow Ribbon Square. And Tony's been over there several times performing for the hostages and for Israel's cause. And I'm not saying, I feel bad for the Palestinians. You understand, Chris, I'm 100% Lebanese. I am 100% Lebanese. And I'm Maronite Catholic. All that being said, my relatives have been massacred by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Of course.
And
these are terrorists, Ray. Like at the end of the day, unfortunately the word Palestinian has become synonymous with terrorism, right or wrong. And you said, I feel for the people. Of course, we all do. Nobody wants to see innocent lives, be wasted, to have people killed. I mean, it's hard to even imagine God would put people in a situation to have them live in a place like Gaza.
But here's what happened.
Torn with war.
The Gaza Strip was abducted, no different than Lebanon was abducted by Hezbollah and the Muslim Brotherhood. The Gaza Strip has been abducted by Hamas, who's all backed by Iran. And being an artist, and I can say this because I'm just nobody, okay? But I think Satan lives in Iran. That's just my opinion, right? And all that being said, this America was God's foothold to implement civil liberties and freedoms throughout the world. And you know what? Washington, when he called it divine providence, was right, because had this nation not been in place, you wouldn't have a free Germany, Italy, France, Japan, South Korea, Great Britain would have fell. The world would be unrecognizable. So we're doing a painting that supports the cause, because in my opinion, Israel is the only beacon of light in the Middle East.
Yeah, for sure. And apparently I missed the show where Ed had Tony Orlando on. The chat is going crazy over Tony Orlando. And I guess Ed had him on Newsmax. And I just want to remind everybody, too, tonight, big boy press conference, 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Mark my
Log
words.
into the Rumble chat with me, and let's do Ed Max tonight, and let's talk about the craziness in America.
Well, you let Chris reach out to me, Chris, and I talked to Tony last night, and he's all in because we spent 2 weeks in Branson, Missouri, and we played that wall that I sent you, Chris. Did you get a chance to look at that 4-minute video?
I have looked at the video. I'm not able to put it up, at least at this point, but it is.
4 minutes is a lot. We probably have to edit that a little bit. But we'll have you back on. We could do another. We'll do all sorts of stuff, Ray.
I do want to throw
Now
one
we know
thing
where
in there.
you are. We know you're in the basement. We can find you.
There we go.
I'm hiding with Joe. Sleepy Joe. Look at Joe. He's right here. Come on, man.
Well, I do see the ice cream truck in the background, so I do understand that. You have a nice supply of Nutty Buddies back there for him. Karyn, I do want to throw one more thing with this big boy press conference. It's going to be just like it's going to be scripted, or at least they're going to be handpicked questions. There's going to be a lot of notes ahead of time, and there will be somebody whispering in his ear. That's what's going to happen. This is going to be a big joke, and it's going to fall. It's going to be worse for Biden and his candidacy than if he just never bothered doing a press conference.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Mark my words. You can nail me tomorrow with Tony if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're onto something, right?
You know what? I've been, as you know, we've been fighting this battle for quite some time. And we knew from day one that Joe Biden's been suffering from dementia. And I guess what's frustrating is you and Ed and Fox News and Newsmax have been pushing this envelope all the time and saying the guy's suffering, and all that. And I just, I don't know if I can say this, Chris, but the mainstream media they got some balls to come on and sit there and say, well, he might be suffering from. It's like they knew this how long ago, Karyn, Chris? How long ago did they know this? They knew this a long time ago.
Before the campaign. They knew it before the 2020 campaign, not before this one, before the 2020 campaign. We all saw it.
We all knew it, but
we all know
that's
they were
what
hiding
is
it.
so perplexing. I mean, even if the election was totally manipulated, completely stolen, all of those things being considered, right? It's so hard to believe there were so many of us, Ray, who thought that he was going to be out in weeks when they brought this man into office, because they said, how is somebody who has dementia going to be in the White House? This can't possibly work. And I thought, I was on air saying, I give him a month, I give him 2 months. And here we are almost at the end of this man's presidency. And it is like a Weekend at Bernie's situation. They're propping this man up, right? It's unbelievable.
Well, I want to throw this one at you as well. I believe the left or parts of the left are trying to sabotage his campaign, which again leads to the big boy press conference, because he's never going to win, whether it's scripted or not. It's going to be bad for him. And but that's another story. The thing is, though, it's not Biden. Basically, people will vote for Biden because of who he represents, the deep state and Barack Obama. These are the people that are running the country, and these are the people the left is voting for, because they know, hey, well, this guy's just a figurehead. We know who's running behind this, because those are the people we like. And they are statists. They worship the state. You can't underestimate that kind of vote.
Chris, I take a different perspective real quick, and I'm not special, but I look at things. I think it's because, in my opinion, I found not all, but many of them are Democrats are just narcissistic. They refuse to say I'm wrong. How many times I go to classes, Karyn, real quick, for free, and I talk about breaking barriers, and I ask one question: when was the last time you said I'm sorry and I was wrong? If you saw how little hands are raised. So the people that are unconditional Democrats, I don't care if we destroy the country. And then I hear this, Karyn. Oh, well, he hurt my feelings. Let me share something with you. I have a SpongeBob SquarePants Band-Aid in my pocket, and I'll put on your boo-boo for your feelings. You know what hurts my feelings, Chris? Roast beef. It was $6.11 a pound when Trump was in office. Yeah. This man right here, guess what it is now? $12.48. Build back better. Please stop.
Here's another thing I want to clear the air with. You see these memes are recycling with remember that reporter who's handicapped, that reporter who supposedly Donald Trump made fun of by going like this too. First off, there are two things about this. One is, this is how I always make fun of tizzied liberals. We always make fun of tizzied liberals by making fun of their voices and using this hand motion. That's how we always do it. Secondly, this is not a sad person who's just on the internet typing. This is somebody who had 100,000 plus followers and had influence and took pot shots at a candidate from a distance. That person technically has more power than you think he has, and technically using a bully pulpit. Somebody fires back at him, he can't just hide behind, or nobody can hide behind a handicap for that. This man keyboard wise and influence wise has a lot of power. You can consider him the bully if that's the case, to be honest with you. He deserves the pot shots. That's right. Deserves the
social media driven world, Chris.
Exactly.
You're back on the social media again. It's been a reoccurring theme here today on this show. And you know what I'm saying to myself too, Ray? I'm looking at your painting. I'm looking at the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm looking at you in the basement and the Joe in the basement reference. And, you know, who are they going to pull out of the shadows? Who's going to be the candidate? Are they going to pull out of the shadows Gavin Newsom, Ray? Is that what's
No,
going to happen?
no,
What do
no.
you think?
I don't think Michelle Obama wants. Michelle and Barack are both billionaires. You know, I did a painting that's going in Obama's library, so they're both big. Excuse me. Do you think they want anything to do with this hot mess? Big fat no. And I don't think Gavin Newsom. I mean, I'm not to be mean, but and he did it.
Oh, I think we have a little freezing issue. Well,
We
let's
had a
do
little
this way.
freeze. That's okay.
Here's a
I love
nightmare
where
for
he's
you.
going with this.
Nightmare
They're gonna
scenario right here.
They're going to go after word salad. They're going to go after word. I don't think they're going to do Hillary. I think they're going to go after Kamala Harris. And if you noticed real quick, Karyn, in that painting, beneath the Golden Gate Bridge, you saw the flag in the middle in the Washington Bridge. If you look at the bottom, that's not water, that's the earth. And it represents Trump's global influence worldwide, peace through strength. There was, again, you've heard Trump say 1,000 times, there was no war when I was president. Because, quite honest, if you look at the bottom, that's the earth. That's the globe of the earth that represents his globe. If you look at the left window in the White House, right, his rightful place, you see a storm and lightning, and you see Lady Justice. In the right, you see a better tomorrow. And you see our founding fathers would the Democratic Party is now a conduit for the wealthiest corporations and the wealthiest people worldwide to submit to push down countries throughout the world, Italy, Greece, and they're trying to break America.
They're succeeding. They're succeeding, Ray, at breaking America.
Exactly.
They
They're
really
trying.
are. You know, the $12 roast beef got me. You know, you got the $12 roast beef. You've got Biden inflation.
I want to say one thing real quick. Do you remember when Ringo Starr came out, Karyn, and said, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile"? You remember that commercial?
Yeah, I do.
Chris, this is not your mother and father's Democratic Party. My mother's from the east side of Youngstown, Ohio, and if Fred Sanford had a sister, it would be my mother. And every other word was son of a you know what. But all that being said, I could hear her right now. She was a Democrat, and she was big on the Trilateral Commission. Look at the latest movie on Netflix, featuring George Soros is in the movie about how it's really. So the American people need to wake up. That's the awakening. The first Trump painting I did, you know what's funny? How it came to full circle? And I'll go quick. When I said the lone eagle that's in the painting, and if you recall what I said evil, evil will inherently topple itself, and it has. God's immutable governing power in the end will always right what is wrong, and it is.
Ray, you mentioned Sanford and Son, and what people don't realize, and I'm a wealth of trivia, useless knowledge here. What people might not remember is that was Maxine Waters' first appearance on television ever on Sanford and Son.
And Esther.
That's great. That's
Hey, Chris, you remember when Fred went on vacation and he brought everybody a gift, and Aunt Esther goes, "Fred, what you buy me?" And he pulled out a glass plate and he said, "A Halloween mask, Esther." And he put it over her face.
They used to like, yeah, Esther, if you ever go to a beauty parlor, they have to change its name to an ugly parlor.
Oh, we lost that humor, didn't we?
Karyn, that was back when comedy was still alive, and you brought up the $12 roast beef, and I just want to give another shout out to Colonial Metals Group. I know, Ray, we've talked about it before. You know that the value of buying gold and silver right now is good, and we're looking to protect families' future here. Call 1-800-805-4034. They can help you. You can get up to $10,000 in free silver. It's customer service at its finest, Chris. We said it earlier. So many companies out there are just going to push you off on their website, make you fill out a form, but they're actually going to pick up the phone and talk to you about your family's financial future and help you set yourself up. So in this crazy Biden economy where roast beef is $12 or $13, you can have a way to leave a legacy for your children and your grandchildren.
That's right. And when you have a cold, you can invest in bullion too. If you invest in bullion when you have a cold,
gold and silver's been a staple. Gold and silver's been a staple of America since her conception. And you know what? I just want to say something real quick. And I don't think it's looking at through the world in a different way. Do you realize that it was It was the Judeo-Christian values that our founding fathers put in our Constitution. And you hear people complain about that. But that being said, do you realize, Karyn and Chris, it's those Judeo-Christian values that put an ironclad umbrella over America, because in 1787, different religions went to Mount Vernon and said, General, are we going to be okay? This is history. Different religions all over rode to Mount Vernon after the American Revolution. Are we going to? What did George Washington say? That's why we fought this war. It was those Judeo-Christian values that put a ironclad umbrella over America that allows you to practice Muslim, Buddhism. You can worship Satan in America. Knock yourself out. Go ahead. But it's that freedom that are based out of Judeo-Christian values that say God gave you the choice to do whatever you want. Go try to do that in Iran.
Yeah, well, in God we trust. In God we trust. That's what's lost these days. And I know we're at just about an hour. And Ray, we're going to have you back. Chris, I see that you guys have a fast friendship, so I'm sure you're going to be talking. We'll have Ray back on and follow up with you. I just want to read, I'm going to be the Jewish girl reading from Jesus Calling, because that's what I do. We have freedom of religion in this country, and freedom of religion is the backbone of what has made us great. And when you look at Donald Trump, there's a terrific book that I have on my bookshelf called The Faith of Donald Trump. It's all about how he views God and how he knows that God is leading him in the direction to lead this country. So I want to read Jesus Calling before we break for the day, because it's been great with all of you, our Rumble chat, you, Ray, Chris, everybody. Seeing Kristen back next week at some point. That'll be wonderful after the hurricane, but little prayer going out for everyone. It is worship me only. The downfall of my people has always been worshiping idols. I make no secret about being a jealous God. Current idols can be more subtle than ancient ones because today's false gods are often outside the field of religion. People, possessions, status, and self-grandeur are some of the most popular deities today. Beware of bowing down before these things, because false gods never satisfy. Instead, they stir up more lust. When you seek me instead of the world's idols, you experience joy and peace. These intangibles shake the thirst of your soul, providing deep satisfaction. The glitter of the world is temporal. The light of my presence is brilliant and everlasting. Walk in the light with me, thus become a beacon to whom others are drawn. Amen. So amen to Thursday. Chris, it's been amazing spending time with you this week and getting to know you. Ray, thank you for joining us. More rabbit holes to come, more fun next week.
Thank you. It looks great seeing you. You look great. And God, I've always loved you and Karyn. Always. Both of you and Ed. Always. So that's because your heart.
Thank you.
People become more beautiful or less beautiful as you get to know them. And you're beautiful to begin with, but your heart is beautiful. So that being said, you have a great day. Thank you. And I'll call Tony Orlando. You let Chris know, or let Chris, you reach out to me. Yeah. Tony wants to come on the show. So
beautiful. We can't wait. We're definitely going to have him on. Chris, you and I will be talking. We got lots in store for next week. We're going to have you back, Chris. Maybe Kristen will also join us. Hopefully you'll join us Tuesday and Wednesday if you're willing. And we'll be waking up with you, Patriots. See you Tuesday.